Hello, and welcome. Not so smooth transition this time. Hang on a second, guys. What happened? Oh, 2 seconds. Oh, is it plugged in?
Oh, your foot was kicked out.
Oh. Oh my God.
I can't see if it's working or not if I do the fucking intro again.
2 seconds. I'm gonna have to edit this now.
I know. Well, you kicked it out, didn't you?
Didn't I? I'm such an idiot. Is it working now? Yes. Okay. Fuck. Sorry, guys.
That was the sloppiest intro we've ever done. Apologies. Angie kicked out the cable when she came to sit on the chair. This was all ready to go, but we're in a little tight space here.
It was my fault this time. I can't even blame you, which is why I'm pissed off.
You're like raging inside, just like I can't even smack him. Oh my God.
I have to smack myself.
Give yourself a big smack on the butt.
But we had been doing so well for the past previous weeks.
We had. It's okay. It was just a little slip up. It's no big deal.
It's fine. It's fine.
This is not, the BBC, mate. We can make the occasional pirate mistake.
We do. We report too much alien news here for it to be the BBC.
Exactly. I haven't seen them really talk about it at all. To be honest,
I don't think they will until it's like fucking fact. Until it becomes like cemented.
Until there's 4K super duper videos.
Exactly. I think that's when the BBC will talk about it, but I don't think they'd risk that.
It's like we were invited by the American government to come and show you Area 51. That's when the BBC will get involved.
Yeah, that's when they'll get involved. But then again, the whole reason they wouldn't is because they wouldn't want to affect their credibility, quote unquote. But then again, they kind of did during COVID.
Exactly.
The whole thing with Jeremy Corbyn as well, and all of that. There's so many instances, even just within the last decade, where they've like fucked with their credibility, but they won't talk about aliens. Like,
well, that was kind of what Elon Musk said on that interview that he had with them.
Oh yeah, I remember that, where he was being sassy.
He was being pretty sassy. But then everyone was like, "Oh, see, you can't answer a question," and he was sort of like, "Well." He wasn't trying to answer a question. He was trying to have a conversation where they were trying to have an interview, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. So he wanted like a back and forth from a representative of the BBC, in which that journalist essentially was. Yeah. And the journalist was like, "No, I'm just supposed to ask you these questions, and you're supposed to answer the questions, and don't make my fucking job difficult." And Elon was just like, of that, "No, buddy, I don't play that fucking game."
Of that interview with Tarantino. And that Channel 4 interviewer who has been given a task to try and tie Tarantino's film to some wider sociological issue like violence or whatever. Whereas Tarantino's just there to plug his fucking film and just didn't give a shit. And he had like a huge meltdown and started like yelling about how he was going to shut.
I'm shutting your butt down.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't know, because people were like, yeah, Tarantino, rah, tell him. But then at the same time, I kind of felt sorry for the guy because he's just doing his job. Like,
they were both just doing their job.
Yeah, and their jobs came into conflict with each other.
That's all it really was, I think. But yeah,
oh man,
he did another podcast recently with Bill Maher.
Who, Tarantino?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Bill Maher has all of these fucking comedians have fucking podcasts now. Like Stephen Colbert, all the late night guys now have a podcast where they're all on it together.
Yeah, they're coming together
tragic.
for a mega podcast.
It's fucking tragic.
It was for some sort of cause. Wasn't it for the writer's strike?
Yeah, something to do with that. But it's just an excuse to like cash in.
So what was
on
that? Like their
media,
Spotify
blah, blah,
deal,
blah.
their Spotify deal for this season of this podcast. What that was the money that was contributed to the Screen Actors Guild or to the Writers Guild.
Who knows?
That's quite an easy thing to check. So I hope that like people follow up on that. Like, do you know what I mean?
Will it be like Amber Heard's ACLU donation?
Well, yeah, like exactly. You can't just be like, I donated it to charity. And it's like, did you though? Because like
we can check that.
Records show that you didn't do that.
We can actually like sleuth about that fairly easily. But yeah, like all these late night guys like have like these podcasts now, and it's like, whatever happened to podcasting just like being a hobby, something that you did casually that like fit around your life, and that you were able to connect with people on niche kind of relatable levels. Why is it now this like huge fucking cottage industry of like retardation?
I don't know, because
now it's to the point where celebrities want to get involved. Like it's obviously an attractive enough and successful enough medium.
Well, I think
it's people with legacy media clout are now clambering to get a piece of the pie.
It's just like YouTube 15 years ago or 10 years ago. You know, like YouTube was like, you know, Phil DeFranco and Ray William Johnson, and you know, like even you could argue Joe Rogan and stuff, you know, in 2014 and stuff. That was kind of where he was mostly kind of being watched.
But there was still this separation between legacy media.
But then you had like Will Smith getting on YouTube.
Yeah.
Like, you know, other.
He was like a pre-runner to celebrity infestation. During COVID, it got worse as well, because there was a lot of them, especially with music artists. There was no touring, nothing was going on. And they needed to find a way of connecting with the public, and also wanted to take advantage of the fact that like people were at home and idle. I feel like, yeah, Will Smith was one of the first people to sort of jump on that. But even back in that time, there was still like a sort of strict stratification between legacy media and like digital media. But now that's kind of completely like Bill Maher has got a fucking podcast. Like, it shows that like the format of like real time, for instance, is so irrelevant now. Harry
and Meghan had a podcast, mate.
Yeah.
They got cancelled because they couldn't even actually follow up with the commitment just to do a podcast for 20 episodes or something.
I think also they got fired because I think some executive called them hacks. After Tim Dillon basically called them glorified reality TV stars.
Yeah.
Like people in Hollywood started to think and self-reflect, and then they were like, actually no, these guys are just like moochers.
You think Tim Dillon's that much of an influencer?
I actually do. I think Tim Dillon's now become an influencer.
If that's true, then hopefully we're going to see based Lizzo, and she's going to start lose a bunch of weight and get hot.
Yeah, she's going to get really hot and like get vengeance on all of the haters
and put those fat bitches in their place.
Yeah.
Pursuing them.
I think people should take Tim Dillon's advice.
he talks a lot of sense in a lot of ways. What
was I saying? But the whole legacy media thing is so weird to me, and the idea that Bill Maher would have a podcast. But then again, he is the podcast bro of like the 20th century, because like his show Politically Incorrect. All of that stuff was all a precursor to the current zeitgeist of culture war and bullshit. And we could say that Politically Incorrect was like a little bit more, at least it sort of tried to ape at pretending to be intellectual. Like he had Camille Paglia on and would bring on kind of trashy cultural figures and also like intellectuals and controversial cultural figures. And it was sort of like a discussion forum for that sort of thing. So really and truly, he, I guess, maybe has some stake in the podcast world, since the talk show is sort of the podcast is kind of a offshoot of like the talk show in a way.
But then all those 5 talk show guys are like should have had a podcast ages ago, is what you're saying. Yeah,
they should have if they were really paying attention to how the media was moving.
But I don't think
that people took it seriously, or they couldn't envisage what would occur.
It's because I think that Bill Maher probably has a lot more to say than those other people.
What do you mean?
There's probably not anything stopping those other people. Or maybe there is. Maybe there's some like horrible, like, you know, Hollywood
clause.
Contract kind of shit where you just like, you're locked in to do this for the next 5 years. You cannot do anything outside of like your show. And like that's like what you're contractually obliged to. Maybe that's the case. But I'd be surprised because they're all quite big celebrities. So I'd imagine that there's some wiggle room for them to do.
Who knows?
A movie or whatever the fuck might come through. And if they wanted to just randomly do a fucking podcast, like, why not?
Yeah, who the fuck knows?
But none of them did until there was like some sort of cause to then like donate.
Well, not
all the
just
money
that.
to.
I think clout. I think that a lot of them have seen the success of people like Joe Rogan and other comedians who have come up.
There's very specific comedians that have come up though. Like people like Theo Von, very funny. Like he also is very specific in like in what he does, his type of comedy. There's no one like Theo Von.
Yeah.
Same with Tim Dillon.
Yeah.
They're very unique comedians. Joe Rogan is unique because of the types of conversation he'll have, and
the types of people he brings
levels
on his shows,
the level of guests that he can kind of get
yeah.
on, and like the sort of relevance of kind of those guests in different times that he has them on and stuff.
Yeah.
But like not every comedian that is even funny or even just a good podcaster. I think there's like a glass ceiling unless you are. Do you know what I mean? Something quite unique and special.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. But I think that it's like a new frontier and that they don't want to be sort of left behind, and they're using this Writers Guild fucking shit as an excuse to establish themselves in like the digital realm. That's kind of how I see it. It's
all just, attention and advertising time. And they know that if 5 of the biggest, late night guys all get together and talk for an hour, that people will listen for that.
NPCs.
And they can insert adverts in there.
Yeah.
So it's not like
that doesn't sound appealing to me though. Like I don't really care what any of them have to say.
I know.
I'm not really interested in.
Like I don't know.
Maybe we are of the generation, because I did grow up watching the Colbert Report and like all of that stuff. But I don't know. I guess
there's too many people. It's too many fucking people for a podcast.
Yeah,
I'm just saying. Like,
but then also in recent years, how they've shown themselves to be. Well, they always were, but I guess the more you mature, the more politically aware you become, the more you see how these guys are just sort of tools for the system.
Yeah.
And I guess things like COVID and all of the other stuff that's happened over the last couple of years brought that into stark relief, and it's just very hard for me to pay attention to any of these people.
I don't know. I liked those kind of masterclass round table things that they did for a while. There was a few series of those where it was like really random tables put together of like different filmmakers. So you had like Quentin Tarantino and Bruce Campbell on the same table with like another 3 amazing like filmmakers in their own right. They just like don't come to my mind because I'm an utter rabid fan of Tarantino and Bruce Campbell. So see, that was quite amazing. But like things like that is kind of interesting. But a part of me feels like they're so big and it looks so structured that it might be a bit scripted and a bit fake.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It doesn't.
Especially the ones with actresses. Like I remember seeing one where there was one with
all like the big like old Hollywood ladies.
Well, no, they had like Viola Davis,
Weaver, and like they
had Viola Davis. They had Sigourney Weaver. I think it was Meryl Streep. Sort of all of these sort of legacy actresses. And there was this really awkward part where I think one of the black actresses who was at the table started going on about how difficult it is to be black in Hollywood. And all the white actresses were trying to look super concerned and like, we hear you, sister, and like, we're concerned. And it was just like really undignified and like gross to watch and seemed really scripted. And like every single one of them was putting on their most concerned face or trying to outcompete like concern.
None of them were beige. I'm just like, yeah, I know exactly how that feels. It's like Gwyneth Paltrow. Just like, yeah, I know exactly how that feels.
Gwyneth Paltrow would have sat there and been like, oh my God, like I know exactly how you feel, and that would have been pretty fucking beige.
I even have like a special skincare routine you can do after you've been rejected because of racism. So
visit my website.
Exactly.
What a marketing genius.
Yeah,
I think we have to take our hats off.
You got to take some notes. You got to get a marketing soon because you've got something very exciting things to announce.
Some exciting news. Yeah, I have a book contract with Rapisa Books currently, so I'm going to be an author. And yeah, my first book is undertaking that is currently happening, which I'm very excited about. Slightly intimidated at the same time, but it's a journey, one step at a time, as usual. But yeah, I'm chuffed. I can't believe that I'm gonna be writing for the same publisher as like Mark Fisher's K-Punk and like a lot of other books that I've enjoyed over the years. So yeah, I'm like gonna be a real writer.
Super proud of you.
I know. Great. Thank you so much. We should have got champagne though.
Well, we've got jars champagne instead, and it kind of looks small. It looks small and unimpressive now, but when we rolled this like half an hour ago,
pretty fat.
It was all right.
I think you can tell by the redness of our eyes and like the.
Whoa! You're not allowed to do that. Careful.
Oh shit!
You know, Twitter will come after you.
They'll come after me. They'll fuck me up. But yeah, hang on. Sorry, I'm just trying to make sure our audio is working and we've not like been talking for 10 minutes without. Yeah. The sound's off apparently.
Oh, you're joking.
Are you joking? Oh. Fuck me.
But it's going here. That is literally impossible. How is the sound off?
Hang on, let me just like have a look. No, it's fine.
Sid is gassing us.
Sid, why are you gaslighting us?
Don't fucking gas me, bro. I've got all my meters running, so dude. I know my audio is good.
Oh, what the fuck?
You can't chat shit to me.
Yeah, you're totally like freaking us out. But yeah, let's continue on. Let's get into the meat of the episode after announcements of my wonderful book contract and the great things that are happening right now. I don't know. I'm nervous.
You shouldn't be. You're going to smash it. You were like on this path for a long time.
That's true.
I'm very proud of you.
Thank you.
Be able to seize this opportunity.
Thank you.
So it's going to be great.
Thank you.
You shouldn't worry. You're just an anxious little bear.
I am anxious. You need
to kind of relax a little bit.
I do. I'm just like, how am I going to fit around everything? Because I'm working at a magazine now. I gotta write this fucking book. I gotta fucking do this podcast. I've got videos that I'm working on as well. So
this podcast is chill. We're all just hanging out. We're all friends here. Yeah, There's nothing fucking daunting, is it? We're just
except for when we make big mistakes with the.
It's not a big deal, mate. Relax. It's fine. Okay. No one cares. We're all good. Like, trust me.
All right.
You beat yourself up too much.
I do. I get stressed out.
Okay.
Despite Jaws champagne, like I'm always like fucking jittering about something.
I stressed myself out unnecessarily earlier in the week.
Did you?
I went to my first Pokemon League match in person.
Yeah.
And I was
Jake has a new hobby, guys.
I was kind of nervous. The card game, by the way, not the video game. And yeah. I thought that I wasn't sure who was going to be there, what kind of people were going to be there, like if it was going to be cool nerds or if it was going to be like too weeby nerds, like like if it was going to be a bit too strange.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. It was all fucking chill. There's a bunch of really safe guys that all go there every week, and I won a fucking game. I won a pack, and I got a card that ended up some guy's going to pay fucking 40 quid for it, so it's going to pay for all of my Pokemon
Your new Pokemon card
entries. Like it's great. Like I'm loving it.
I've been making fun of you about your newfound hobby all week, and you were like, well, when I become Pokemon champion and go to Japan, I'm not going to take you.
Exactly. When I'm
you have to take me if you do.
When I'm the very
you
best,
don't have a choice.
When I'm the very best, you won't be coming with me on my journey.
Why not?
Because you doubted me.
I never doubted you. I just thought it was a strange thing to like,
Well, it turns out it's not. It turns out there's like at least about probably another 40 other 30-year-old dudes that also like to play Pokemon.
Are you sure
cards.
this isn't like an algorithm thing? Because I was on TikTok the other day. And
what, you think this is a Steely Dan thing
again?
Yeah,
I think this is a Steely Dan thing again. Because I was on I think Jake is prone to psyops. We got to watch him.
I'm not prone to psyops.
I'm joking. Because I was watching a TikTok the other day where it was like an NPC and it was like millennials choosing their personality in their 30s. And then it was like wino, Pokemon cards, something else, I forget. But Pokemon cards was in the list of things floating in the zeitgeist. Clearly
it's not cool, okay, to make fun like that. Okay, I'm not just a psyop victim. That's facts.
You're a true fan.
I think it's basically I wouldn't have just like randomly got into it, but what happened is that they updated the video game version of it and made it really good and accessible to everybody to just play for free. And then obviously once you get a taste for that and you kind of see that it's not like Magic the Gathering and someone can just kind of like have a magical card that makes you fucking suck a dick and lose the game. You actually have to play the game. It's like, oh, this is really fun. And then it just made me want to get into it. Yeah. It's fucking dope. I'm looking forward to fucking going on my little journey and we'll see where we go. 12 weeks. It's a 12-week league.
I just want you to win the trip to Japan. That's all I'm interested in.
Exactly. And I already got 1 win, 1 tie, and it was 1 win, 2 losers. But then next week with an upgraded deck, bang, 2 wins. Next week, 3 wins, and then we're on the way to Japan, baby.
Yeah, that's the only part I'm interested in.
Or if you keep sassing me about me getting into Pokemon, then I'm going to take my buddy Jack, who lived in Japan. And he can fucking be my tour guide and take me to all the fucking cool spots.
No, dude. No.
You know?
Absolutely not. If you get to go to Japan to play in the Pokemon legendary fucking Chigu tournament or whatever, then you have to take me. I'm not going to come to that. I'll be shopping.
You're not even going to cheer me on.
No, I'll be shopping. But babe, you can.
You're talking yourself out of a ticket to Japan. I'm telling you. You're talking yourself out of a ticket to Japan.
Could you actually go to... I bet you're not good enough yet because you've just started.
Well...
You've got to train. I need to like Tiger Mom you.
I'm going to get into it.
So we get the trip.
I'm going to get into it. And, I'm going to try and be the very best and get to Japan.
You've got the look.
Exactly. I've got like an iconic Pokemon trainer look. Like if you met me in a Pokemon game, you'd be like, oh shit. Like he would be like a gym leader or a fucking or a rival or some shit. Like I've got such a striking look about me that you couldn't help but be like a bit of a character. So I feel like I would do well. You
do kind of look like a Pokemon trainer.
Like if I get to regionals and they actually like put me on the streams and stuff, I feel like people will talk about me if I go dressed like this.
This is the way that you're gonna like put your imprint.
It is. Maybe I should go to dress like this to my next Pokemon League match.
You should. You should take like a.
But what I'm worried about. So I did think about wearing my glasses for the first match, but I was worried that they were going to reflect all of my cards.
Oh yeah.
And then it's just like,
give away the game.
Bang! What you fucking dickhead? You might look cool, but bang! Look at that. Easy
just giving away your entire hand.
So it's just like, fuck that. But then if they don't...
You're jeopardizing our trip to Japan with those glasses.
Exactly.
Jake.
But if they don't, then I can just go rocking in a kimono and glasses. And I feel like it will just put people off. They're just like, what the fuck? Who are you? Like, what is going on? It's like, I'm just a guy. Don't worry about me, dude. Okay, I'm working my way to Japan.
Your race to Japan.
Yeah.
I hope it happens for you. I really do. You've got all my mojo and witchcraft in your corner.
Some people want to set goals, like they want to own a house and like do things like that. Like I want to become a Pokemon card champion and get a free trip to Japan. Yeah. I feel like that's a pretty reasonable goal to have.
Simple, reasonable goal.
Like, like when
achievable.
You're coming... It is. It is.
Fun, exactly. All of those things, all the important things.
It's the friends you make along the way. Do you know what I mean?
That's what matters. Well, anyway, let's get to the meat of the episode. Let me check that the audio is working again. Now I'm paranoid because of Sid.
Sid, you've made Angie anxious.
The audio
is working.
Yeah, the audio is working. Okay.
You doubting my meters?
Oh my god.
Let me press the camera so that doesn't go
turn off again.
But yeah, introduce the first topic.
Okay, which one are we doing first? Are we doing Matrix first? Yeah.
Yeah, Matrix first.
So... Me and Jake saw the 20th anniversary screening of The Matrix this weekend, which was pretty fucking awesome.
It was very epic.
I never got to see it on the big screen, obviously, because I was how old were we when it came out? 4?
I was 6. You were 5 because it came out in 1999.
Okay.
So it was the 20th anniversary remaster that came out in 2019, but then I rescreened it because I watched it in 2019 when the remaster came out, but it's just such a great film, and 4 years is a good little distance I feel like to have from an awesome film like The Matrix or like Pulp Fiction or kind of like one of those classics and stuff. You got to have a bit of time between viewings for it to kind of mean something different next time you watch it. And I feel like especially now, Matrix kind of hits bigly different.
Yeah.
It hits very, very different with both just the general threat of AI and sort of that kind of paranoia being kind of, or not paranoia, but like the real protagonist of that sci-fi story. And then also just kind of the imagery of like federal agents sort of being able to do next level fucking kung fu and like running after you through crowds and shit kind of, I feel like hits a little bit differently in 2023 than it did probably in 1999. But yeah, it was just such a phenomenal. They did such a phenomenal job of the remaster as well. It's just a really impactful thing to watch in the theater.
It was cool and it was impactful to watch for sure. But I was looking at it with a lot more of a skeptical eye this time round. Like, I really enjoyed the experience of watching it on the big screen, which is like something that, you know, I never had. And I think it warrants like watching on the big screen. But I was sort of looking more at like how it parallels The Invisibles, number one, which is something is something that doesn't get talked about a whole lot. Like, you know, The Invisibles kind of drew on that great meme of like, you know, reality is not real. There's like a ragtag team of cyberpunk goth fucking wizard type people who have discovered an enlightened truth. The theme of the psychopomp is there as well, with Tom O'Bedlam, who like initiates the protagonist of the Invisibles in the same way that Neo gets initiated by Morpheus. Morpheus is also a psychopomp. Like the meme of like, you know, a resistance against some kind of archonic force or whatever was really, and also that kind of mixed with the 90s zeitgeist of like the .com era, raves, all of those different things. Invisibles is all of that. It was all of that kind of distilled.
The soundtrack as well is just fucking so good in The Matrix.
Yeah. But The Invisibles is a comic book, so I bet if it had a soundtrack, it would have had a much better one than what, because The Matrix is, the soundtrack is cool, but it's also kind of like predictable and cheesy at the same time.
Some of the action bits definitely have a more cheesy, predictable kind of, but some of the like the scene where Neo first meets Trinity and they're in the club, and there's always it transitions from fucking Rob Zombie Dragula into some next level fucking acid techno thing. Dope. Fits the vibe. Excellently curated. The whole film is just so excellently put together. It's one of those lightning in a bottle situations, clearly, because they weren't able to do it again for 20 years. And I did try at the very end of COVID, or maybe in the last year or so, to watch the last Matrix. That was unbelievable.
But I mean, I think it's because the first one basically said all that really needed to be said and did what it could do with that trope, at least in the scope of that universe.
Should have been one and done.
Yeah, I think it should have been one and done.
I agree. But
and secondly, I think the part of the reason why is because it draws so deeply on that initiatory hero's journey trope sort of thing. Which was, and the thing is, when Grant Morrison made The Invisibles, he did so with the intent of it being, quote unquote, a hyper sigil. And he's talked about this in interviews where he says he knows that the Wachowskis were heavily inspired by The Invisibles, but that he didn't really mind because he made it with the intent of it being sort of a ritual work that would have an impact on culture. So he really didn't care about how it got into the zeitgeist. He just wanted the ideas present in The Invisibles to make it into culture somehow.
Well, they do seem to have a knack for picking those kinds of things, actually.
Well, it's because they're nerds. It's because they're nerds. They did V
Vendetta as well.
They did V for Vendetta, which was an Alan Moore adaptation.
But then that did act like the hypersigil. Because then that face, that mask, that figure became the anonymous, like, iconic, you know,
mask of the internet era.
Not only the internet era, but then like of actual protests and stuff.
The Arab Spring, all of that stuff.
So
you saw the V mask there. So that was a it became a hyperstition in a way. The Matrix introduced a lot of different ideas, like the idea of pilling. Like on one of the major memes of the internet is like the red pill, blue pill concept. Everybody fancies themselves a Morpheus. Everyone fancies themselves a psychopomp these days, initiating the fucking seekers, you know, on the internet into some great mystery and, you know, dropping the veil of modernity over their eyes. And of course, everyone on the internet has main character syndrome and sees themselves as the one, as Neo or whatever. There are a lot of, I guess, like pernicious and cheap ways that these tropes have been received by the wider culture. But I feel like whatever magic Grant Morrison did worked because it did kind of act as a precursor to the sort of spiritual projections of the modern era, most of which have something to do with like AI or the internet or the idea that we're basically going to be able to transcend our reality in some way, or that the reality that we're currently in is flawed in some way, which you see is a major theme in the development of technology currently.
I think that it was sort of it was like referencing obviously fears around AI. I think were still quite sci-fi, like in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
There was obviously we've had artificial intelligence to some degree since like the 70s. I think was when the initial sort of idea and research was initially done, but it's sort of the idea of like, yeah, the Matrix was still certainly really sci-fi. It's not that it's not sci-fi anymore, but I think we are so much closer to robots, and you know, even if you just had a fairly standard looking like one of those like sex dolls or whatever, either a man or a woman, and it could actually move its mouth convincingly and you know, gesture and everything, and have ChatGPT in it. That would be close enough for some people to think that that's a person. Or maybe it would be uncanny valley. Maybe for drunk people, they'd sort of like look at it and just be like, hey, yeah, I can buy cigarettes from this person or whatever. It doesn't bother me. Because it would be like a fake person, a ghost in the shell. You know?
Yeah.
But I don't think it's going to get to the point where we got floating squids kind of like putting everyone in batteries and stuff. But it's...
But of course, in terms of just like... the mytho-poetic universe that the Matrix constructs, how it sort of became the cosmology of like the modern era.
Definitely. I think it is the
in
internet.
A lot of different ways.
What they do describe though is the internet. It's like this thing that's all consuming of humanity and like sucks us of our bodily fluids essentially. It puts us in the fake fluids to like, you know, take our precious bodily fluids and then re-digest us to babies.
Yeah. It's apocalyptic. It has a savior figure as well, despite the fact that we're in the secular age or whatever, you know, we are more religious than ever. And the Matrix was kind of, I guess, supposedly supposed to be, it was kind of trying to act as, I guess, an arcanum for the times, like a revelation of the arcanum or whatever for the times. And it's really conspicuous. I mean, there's even a point where Morpheus does like a very conspicuous as above, so below gesture. It's littered, it's littered with all kinds of occult imagery and references. Like, you know, it's quite obvious what it's trying to do. But part of the reason why I feel like the Wachowskis were never really able to repeat their success of The Matrix is because obviously the zeitgeist at the time came together to make it work. Like, it was sort of lightning in a bottle, number one. But number two, because it was sort of directly ripping off the hypersigil of the Invisibles. And like they didn't have that material to work with afterwards, basically. Well,
it's like, I think that because I don't know
like V for Vendetta, the two of their best films are things that have been taken from comic books, basically.
I know, but the hypersigil worked with V for Vendetta. Because then people actually did take that image and use it to go and protest and do all that stuff. I don't really know what the kind of message. I need to reread The Invisibles. It's been at least 10 years probably since I've read The Invisibles.
I gave my copy away like an idiot. I let someone borrow it and they never gave it back. So we need to fucking buy it again, and it's like not easy to get. Like, we can probably get it online easily, but like in the in the comic book shop that's near us, it's
I also don't like to shop online. I like to go into shops and buy things, but that's just me.
But yeah, we need. What were you saying? You need to reread The Invisibles
because I don't know what the sort of message of The Invisibles is. I don't know, like, do you know what I mean?
It's the same thing.
The message of V for Vendetta is to sort of like realize your own power and not to give in to like authoritarian fucking like, false
systems,
controlling speak and all of this kind of fucking bullshit, and to like realize reality, which is very much like the Matrix in its own way.
Well, that's the same thing with The Invisibles.
More grounded in reality, and way more reality than you could even really have wanted to actually believe in 1980, whenever the fuck when Alan wrote it in the first place, and then again even in 2010 or something, or 2008, 2010, I want to guess around there for V for Vendetta, that there would be some like orchestrated government sickness that was put across its population to then do all sorts of glowy behavior and lockdowns and everything else, right? Like, that was a very far distant horrible nightmare, not something we're all possibly anticipating them potentially doing again in October, if you believe Alex Jones. So the world has changed a lot, and watching The Matrix now, I felt like it just maybe it's just such a good film. It's gonna resonate with you throughout time, no matter what you watch it.
Yeah,
but it felt.
But even then, I feel like because the hyper sigil aspect of it is important, because obviously it had a massive impact on the zeitgeist. It changed the way people thought about reality and control. It brought the meme back into sort of existence. And one really interesting thing I've been reading, which is another topic of discussion, is I got my hands on a copy of Jung's Flying Saucers, which I'm like thoroughly freaking enjoying. If I can start book club up again, I have a lot more on my plate these days, so it's a little bit difficult, but this is definitely on the list, if I can start it up again. But yeah, I've been reading this, and it has a lot to do with like this idea of like the God image returning in the modern age. Like Jung doesn't really go into the reality or unreality of UFOs. Like he doesn't see that as his place as somebody who's like a psychiatrist. And he's more interested in unpicking the psychic content of these like numinous figures in the sky that, you know, there's been accounts of for a very, very long time. And I think it sort of ties into the Matrix thing that we've been talking about, because, you know, the way that Jung characterizes UFOs, or at least the mytho-poetry that we project onto UFOs in this book, is in such a way that it represents the self archetype. And the self archetype is basically the reconciler of opposites, the thing that like contains the totality, both conscious and unconscious mind. And this is usually symbolized as a circular thing. It could be a mandala, you know, the yin yang symbol, the god discs of ancient Egypt, the sun disc sort of things. This is sort of an archetype that's followed us throughout human history. Or the idea of like circumambulation, like going around the maypole or traversing something in a ritual. Like this is the self archetype.
Or like the universe.
Yeah, the universe, like the idea of the totality.
Itself is constantly spinning, right?
Yeah, the idea of the totality. And basically Jung saying, because they appear to us as these discs in the sky, what we're seeing is a projection of the self archetype. But the reason we can't see the self archetype as we did in previous centuries, like say, for instance, in the Piscean age, the self-archetype was characterized in the Christ image. But now, because we're in this mechanized, technological, hyper-scientific, hyper-rational age, the only way that the self-archetype can manifest itself is as like a technological angel. Which kind of reminded me of Evangelion a little bit, the fact that he mentioned the term technological angel. But I don't know, I find that such a compelling subject, because he's not saying that UFOs or whatever, that it's not real phenomena. Like, you know, we've projected myths onto real phenomena.
It's like how we contextualize.
Yeah.
And
like, even if it's real, it doesn't matter. Like, what matters is the psychic content we project on these things. Like, for instance, like a meteor shower. Like, ancient people probably made lots of myths about this very real phenomenon. But the myths they made contained like psychic content, and that's what he's interested in, is like
or even Game of Thrones, right? Like, just to make a clear reference that maybe a lot of people get, or maybe we're too really nerdsy. Maybe this really gives away our hand how nerds we are. But like the whole myth is or like what kicks it all off is this big meteor in the sky. And all of these different characters around Game of Thrones all interpret this meteor to mean a specific thing, to prophecy. whatever nuts prophecy they've kind of encountered through their like weird little back channels or whatever. So the red lady, Melisandre, like sees it as like a sign that the Red Prince is coming or something.
Daenerys sees it as a sign.
Sees it as a sign that she's the one, or she should be the Dragon Queen or whatever the fuck. Like who else sees it? And doesn't Tyrion, and also people at the Wall see it?
Yeah,
and think
everyone
it's like
sees it.
People at the Wall see it and think it's like a destiny of like enemies coming to the Wall and stuff, or something like that. I might be getting the details confused, but they see it everywhere, and they all contextualize it in these different ways. And that's exactly like what Jung's trying to do with UFOs, and sort of like the impact that has on people psychologically as well, and sort of like what that is actually going to do to people.
But what I find so fascinating is that the self archetype acts as like a redeeming image, but it also is terrifying because it puts you into contact with your depths. It's a confrontation with the depths, in the same way that like Neo in the Matrix has his confrontation with the depths when he encounters Morpheus, who's the psychopomp. Like I'm trying to map the occult ritualistic beats of the things that are going on, because it's like it's the same in everything basically. And like we're also going through a similar initiatory process where we're being forced to confront our depths by this self archetype that's trying to force psychic balance to occur again. And the only way that can happen is through something technological, because we've pushed our depths, we've pushed the unconscious, religion, all of that stuff, we've pushed it into a cage, and we're purely scientific, purely rational. We only relate to the world in those ways, especially in the West. So the only way that the self archetype can come to fruition and like force us to confront our depths is in the form of these technological angels.
Well, I feel like I feel like if everybody received like a telepathic message at the same time. Like if you heard a
like
voice,
in Valis or whatever.
like if you all heard a voice in your head that wasn't yours, that you didn't recognize, and it gave you it just said a sentence or something, but it said it at the same time, and everybody in the world heard it in their brain at the same time, whether you're asleep or not, and you heard it very loudly. I feel like everybody would kind of look at each other and be like, "Did you hear that?" And that would be a phenomenon that would already then, do you know what I mean? But maybe it's like,
but this has happened,
physicality of seeing something.
But this has happened many times throughout history. There's been many sort of mass instances of mass hallucinations, or things along those lines, even mass UFO sightings where multiple people have claimed to see these things. And he sort of says that phenomena is incredibly similar to the UFO phenomena, but in the sense that he's sort of linking it to psychological archetypes and how they assert themselves, and how the confrontation with the depths in the 21st century or the Aquarian age or whatever, coming from us having to confront the idea that there are things in the sky that are like breaking the laws of physics. It makes us question our place on the food chain, our place in the universe. It will make us question just about everything. Yeah. And that is what the self archetype does. It forces you into the depths. It's a reconciliation of consciousness and the unconscious. It's the totality. It's the God image, basically. And it appearing means that we're on the precipice of a confrontation with the depths as a civilization.
Well, yeah, that's kind of what it feels like it's all ramping up to, doesn't it?
Yeah, big time.
There was even like a study done in America, I think, where it said that 40% of people feel like we are living in apocalyptic times.
Yeah. And I mean, that's like not even just crazy Christian fundamentalists. That's also people who are kind of climate change fanatics as well.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean by people think that apocalypticism and all of this stuff is only reserved for cults and crazy religious fanatics. But look, what's more rational and scientific than your average like liberal climate change science believer? You know, they're not typically people who are religious in any sort of meaningful way. And religious questions...
They got both boosters.
They got both boosters.
They're rational people.
Yeah. And they basically are people who, you know, don't really think about religious questions that often. But then again, they're also riddled with apocalyptic fervor. I was talking to someone the other day who had read Greta Grunberg's mom's book. And apparently the whole household is like depressed. And they've been telling Greta that the world is going to end since she was like a toddler.
Wow.
So, you know, that's the kind of psychic reality of her.
That's kind of like eco-grooming.
Yeah, it kind of is eco-grooming. And that should be punishable, in my opinion.
It's kind of almost as bad as, like, even this week there was some lady who was like a mum YouTuber or whatever who's been arrested and charged with like child abuse and stuff.
Oh my gosh.
So like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, even then, the apocalyptic fever has grasped these people. And we live in such deeply apocalyptic times, despite the fact that we've discarded religion. And the reason that we do is because this self-archetype is trying to sort of assert itself. and we are on the precipice of a confrontation with the depths. But I feel like in Western culture, we're ill-equipped to deal with that. Like, we don't know what it's like to deal with the unconscious, the unknown, the realm where rationality doesn't necessarily lead the way. I think a lot of people have attempted to confront it through psychedelics, through, all sorts of different spiritual practices. But I think because of the way that society is structured, we're not really ready to, the thing I fear the most is that we're not really ready to confront the depths, but it's not like we have a choice. They're rising up, and quickly too.
Exactly. And I don't know, it's kind of, I don't know if that's just kind of the way that the media is sort of obviously engineered to make everybody feel like it's always ramping up to this other thing. But, they have been making things about it's 1 minute to midnight on the doomsday clock. And
that's what I'm saying.
But I wouldn't say apocalypse is necessarily always like, it's not always a bad thing. I think the meaning of apocalypse is like
revelation,
sudden, like revelation.
That's
like,
what it means.
Like a big change.
Yeah.
So, or like, the world turning upside down.
Yeah.
And to be honest, there's lots of things that if the world was turned upside down, I certainly wouldn't be opposed against. So, it was going to be a resetting of a lot of different kind of things. Well, basically everything. If like, especially if like all this UFO stuff comes out to be legit.
Well, even then, I'm not necessarily saying that like we're in apocalyptic times and trying to be a prophetess of doom or anything.
Hopefully, it comes out before they fucking bomb the whole place.
I'm talking specifically about the fact that the apocalypse meme is here and what it means. And why it's like so strong, basically. I don't necessarily think that we're living in apocalyptic times, but I do think it's interesting that meme is sort of dominant again in so many different ways. Like, and I think that it means that we're on the precipice of like a confrontation with the depths. Like in World War II, the only time where Jung made any sort of intervention into popular discourse was during obviously the events of World War II, and then again with this UFO book. For most of the time, he was just in his like fucking chateau in Switzerland, traversing the depths of the psyche and like doing his wizard work or whatever the fuck. But the only 2 times...
And treating some patients with his penis.
Yeah, treating patients with his penis as well. We can't avoid the fact that he was a lecherous man. But most charismatic men are, but whatever. Anyway, so yeah, he's in Switzerland. He's in his chateau most of the time. He's not like fucking engaging necessarily with like public discourse. But the only 2 times he did was, again, to comment on World War II and the catastrophe of that period, and also what it meant about the human psyche. And then again with this essay, to warn people about what this emerging popular rumor meant about our collective psyche and where we were, and where we are now. And I mean, we were just discussing it the other day. Like, we were talking about how there are sort of different levels of consciousness, like mundane consciousness, and then the higher circuits. We're like according to sort of Timothy Leary's like 8 circuit model, which is really interesting, and you should read up about it if you're interested in that sort of thing. But the higher circuits are where things like visions and sort of ego death, the feeling of numinosity, the feeling of sort of connection to the all, that's sort of where the higher circuits are. Any sort of religious experiences contained there, any sort of mystical experiences contained there. And then the lower circuits have more to do with everyday life survival and day-to-day needs. And, Western culture seems to be stuck entirely in those sort of lower circuits. But then we do have access to higher circuit experiences because everybody does. It has nothing to do with your ego or you being special. Consciousness is powerful and interconnected. So people will have access to higher circuits experiences no matter what. But the thing is, culture is structured in such a way that we don't know how to compute or how to handle those higher circuit experiences.
Well, there was some I think like there were some psychedelic churches set up in the OG days of psychedelic research where they were doing stuff like that. But now it's all just kind of like scammy people trying to pilfer money off of like upper middle class people.
Yep. It's not real preparation for the depths.
Because they've heard about it, maybe read about it on Goop or something.
So it's under the label of wellness culture.
Yeah.
Like corporate wellness culture has kind of swallowed in a lot of this stuff. But what it's supposed to be is like preparation for confrontations with the depths, which I don't think our culture has enough of. And I think it's high time that those things started to happen, because we're gonna need it for the coming times. I mean, AI, all of the different things, the impending war, possibly all of the different threats that are facing humanity.
It's just like
are confrontations with the depths, and you have to be psychologically prepared to deal with them.
Our like hearts and minds need to like evolve with all of this stuff. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because like if you want all of the potential of AI, like I remember I was saying about how Radio Free album of this Philip K. Dick book would make a great film, and you were like, oh well, AI, you could just like tell it you want a film of that, and it would just cast a bunch of people in it, like your favorite people, and then you can just watch it.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, yeah, but for that to be real, like it has to be like Jonah's Awful, like from Black Mirror, right, where you don't really care about Selma Hayek's being a human being and anything. You just want her as like a object to put in for your consumption and your entertainment. And so you kind of like, where's your morals with that? Like the further you go down technology, there's always a trade-off with humanity and your rights around it, right? Like internet has kind of fucked your privacy in many ways.
Yeah.
And so now
all of these are sort of
AI. What is that trade-off going to be?
Yeah.
That trade-off is going to be like seeing people maybe not like completely as human beings, but like even more as commodities that are and should rightly, freely be able to be programmed into these new technologies for you to satiate kind of whatever whims that you might have.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like that's like a different kind of freedom that you're then like kind of giving up, and that's not going to be maybe for everyone, or even maybe it could be if it literally was like Jonah's Awful. Maybe that even it literally could be.
But these are all confrontations with the depths, I guess, and all like things that are currently forcing us to like find ways of navigating, but we're so untethered from history, tradition, religion, any sort of guiding principle, and it's such a dangerous time. And I think that that's kind of what Jung is getting at, that the self-image, the God archetype is like showing itself in all of these weird manifestations, because we won't look at it. We won't look at it in any other way.
Yeah.
But we have to look at it
because
so that we can traverse our depths.
I think it's like anything that could totally change the paradigm of what it means. Like AI, if all of those, as I said, like making a film from just stuff you're putting in about a book you found interesting or something, and it makes a film. Like if it really gets to be that powerful, there's no telling like what other shit it could be doing as well. And so that would completely change the paradigm that you live in the world.
Yeah.
And so that could only be seen as God. And like even Arthur C. Clarke has that famous quote, right, of like any kind of technology that would be so advanced would be indistinguishable from magic. And I think if you kind of explained or like even told someone your fears around what I just said around kind of making your own personal content out of whims and an AI engine, like that would seem like utter sci-fi to someone my age when I was born, like in 1993. If you said that to someone, they'd tell you to get the fuck out of town. That's some like crazy like Star Wars, Star Trek type shit. But no, that's like within my lifetime. And so not only that, we're going to have further revelations with technology that are going to completely change the world we're living in. Not only that, we have the precipice of all of this crazy unknown glowy fucking like history of the world that like could be unveiled on us at any point.
And that's exactly what apocalypse is. It's like an unveiling, a revelation or whatever.
And these are revelations. It's like the revelation of what do you hold dear? What are you willing to? Well, not even what are you willing to? What's going to be offered to you to trade in access for this new technology? Is it simply going to be just, another subscription and you just pay that? Is there going to be a certain amount of like your image rights and all of sorts of stuff that then is going to be feeding and actually like helping that AI make new faces and do all sorts of other things? Do you know what I mean? There's going to, like, even now I saw that there's a new TV service where you get sent a brand new 4K 52-inch, OLED TV with a soundbar on the bottom. The only hitch is that soundbar has a little camera in the middle of it, and it has to watch adverts. That's
not real.
That is 100% real.
That's not real.
It was called free TV. I could show you right now if you want me to.
And the catch is that you have to have a camera.
The catch is that you have to have a camera watching you watch the TV shows and watch the adverts, so that you're giving them like that data. Market feedback. But not only that, like, who knows then what kind of rights you would give away just to get access to, like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, all of us, you own nothing, right? And maybe that's not even a term of like you rent everything, right? Maybe that's a case of we'll give you everything. We'll give you all of this technology, but all you have to do is be in front of these fucking cameras, and these cameras are going to feed us with human information about how we can better make AI generated content and like all of this other crazy stuff. That's the price. So they'll do that crazy kind of like free internet utopia thing of paying you for your data by giving you this technology, which in turn will just watch you and perpetually feed them. It's like a big fucking snake that just goes round and round and round.
That was one of the other themes.
And it's the Matrix. You're fucking trapped within it, because we're all trapped within this content fucking addiction cycle shit. That was got to be fucking watching shit.
That was one of the other themes of the Matrix, was that sort of paranoia that was being sort of expressed about like being fed upon or being cattle for some higher sort of machinery or whatever. The idea of human obsolescence as well is explored in the Matrix. But I guess human obsolescence is explored in a more like derogatory fashion, because it's not seen as a positive thing, because obviously humanity is still fighting on. It's not like Ghost in the Shell, let's say, where the end of humanity is just kind of like, well, that's just how it goes. It seemed like more like, I felt like Ghost in the Shell kind of celebrates the end of humanity more than,
well, because it's more just like we persevere anyway, and the humanity is not just in the biologic, because we've engineered and made all of this robotics, and so it inherently has us in it. And so humanity still comes through even someone that doesn't have like a organic brain and stuff like that.
I don't buy it. My Benny Gesserit brain doesn't buy it.
You are going in the genocide bin. In the Benny Gesserit.
Yeah, in the Butlerian jihad bin for sure. Major would end up there.
Jihad genocide.
Major would end up getting annihilated in my
You can try, mate. Jihad. You can fucking try. Katsunagi will fucking take you out.
Nah, mate. I wouldn't do the fighting. Obviously, I would have my squad of like Benny Gesserit army people do it. But I found it super interesting that Jung was talking about how the lack of religion and the sort of death of any sort of tether to the depths, which is precisely what religion is. And I feel like not religion, spirituality of any kind, any sort of, I guess, anything that puts you in contact with the transcendent or like the numinous or whatever.
But that's what everything is. That's what that's like exactly what I was saying. Like the internet and fucking social media is designed to trap you and addict you and keep you away from that, and keep you in like quick, shallow thought, which you cannot enter the depths. Or get anywhere close to the depths. No. If you're just like
shallow,
like constantly zhung every like half a second scrolling through fucking TikTok and scrolling through all these websites.
But the depths will still find a way of asserting itself. And that's I guess the idea that I find the most interesting about Jung's analytic psychology model, is that the self archetype almost acts like an immune system for the psyche. So whether you're conscious of it or not, it will try to make you circumambulate. And circumambulation is like the process of individuation. And the reason that circumambulation rituals are ancient and pretty much cross-cultural is because that process represents the individuation process. the sort of journey towards wholeness in that sense. And yeah, the reason why I find this kind of redeeming, even though it's kind of doomery and like, oh my gosh, the apocalypse, the age of Aquarius, the new Platonic month.
Because Jung is a nervous Nelly.
He is a nervous Nelly.
You know,
it's also really hopeful in the fact that it sort of highlights the fact that the psyche is sort of a self-regulating, self-healing mechanism in a way, both the personal psyche and the collective psyche. And I mean, personally in my life, especially over the last like 4 or 5 years, I've seen this like circumambulation process occur and something higher take over in that sense. Me sort of following the flow of that thing and it kind of reordering and rejigging my psyche, getting rid of stuff that wasn't meant to be there, turning my attention to shadows, all of those things. These are all processes that, of course, I turned my conscious attention towards them, but at the same time, I felt like they happened without me having to try too difficultly. I only had to have the intent to want to look within my depths. Just turning your intent and your conscious attention inward can work a world of wonders. And that's not just on a personal level, on a collective level as well. The depths must be traversed, and the self-archetype of the whole of humanity is manifesting itself in these fucking UFO things that are flying around, basically. And I think we need to look at what it's teaching us, I guess. It's hard to follow because there's so much charlatanry and bullshit going on around it in that sense.
Well, I think there are some genuinely curious, good-natured people that are trying to get it out in a way that's not going to get people, like, you know, have stuff taken away from them, like their pensions and all sorts of bad things. And I do genuinely believe that people are fighting to try and get into the actual story, like, totally released. I'm sure there's going to be an amount of psyopery in there, but I think that the actual nature of the truth is way beyond the scope of something you could manipulate that much.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because the consequences and the what ifs of if true are so many that like you can't just go, yeah, that we do have all of that stuff, and yeah, we've been doing all that and we lied for ages, and don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Like, and everyone would just be like, okay, on you go. Like, no way. I think as soon as it's fully like confirmed, then it's gonna was it fully confirmed, like, do you know what I mean? Like, if all of the crazy fucking whistleblower allegations are like fully confirmed, then that's only going to be the beginning of it. Do you know what I mean? So I feel like in my lifetime it was a great time to be born, dude. It was a great time to be alive in a lot of ways. Like, I thought it was kind of lame because I missed Nirvana, I missed Pantera, like, you know, I missed like a lot of great music. And I feel like definitely as a music vibey kind of guy, like, it definitely maybe wasn't the greatest time to get born. But then, hey, you get all this great alien disclosure stuff instead.
You have to live through crazy Age of Aquarius shit.
I had to live through fucking Afrobeat becoming like the music and the playlist for everywhere and everything.
Well, don't shit talk Afrobeat, because the stuff today isn't. I wouldn't necessarily call it Afrobeat.
21st century modern.
Because Fela Kuti is part of that heritage and lineage. Like, you don't shit on Afrobeat. Like, you know.
I feel like you've got it. Yeah. How do they call it? How do they call it Afrobeat? Is that in an attempt to erase people like Fela Kuti?
Yeah, I think so. They're trying to make this weird global pop trash shit without paying any homage to the roots of it. People like Sunny Ade and Fela Kuti and all of those sort of Nigerian artists of the 70s. Well, not even just Nigerian. That's me being solipsistic. It was all over Africa. You know, there was sort of a sort of psychedelic funk movement. And that was kind of where it had its genesis. And that's like real music, good music. It was Africa in the 21st century expressing itself.
Well, in the 20th century.
20th century, sorry, expressing itself. But in the 21st century, it's like this weird global sound, which is just like a mishmash of everything, but with like a little bit of an Afrobeat in the drum.
Reggae, with like reggaeton, with like fucking all of the kind of, African generate, like, not nationality, because all the West Indian places, but they also were from West Africa. Do you know what I mean? So like, all the places that have people that like originated in West Africa, that's all the music. It's all lumped into one now. It's all just called Afrobeat,
which sucks. But even then, there's some of the house stuff is okay. Like, I like some of the housey stuff that's
there was some really good techno at Sonar Festival from a band called Grove that I really liked. And they're from Bristol, where they were doing some full-on like afrobeat techno, just techno sounds but afrobeat rhythms.
Sick,
and just like
sick.
That was fucking kick-ass.
Sick.
And then I tried to look them up on YouTube, and there was nothing like that on their YouTube. I was just like,
there's
dude,
something...
you're doing the wrong thing. Like, do that one. That was much better.
It's so in South Africa, there's a lot of that mashup of like old school rave sounds and like Afrobeat and stuff, which is pretty cool. Like, I don't mind that sort of thing, but the sort of thing that you hear on TikTok, I really like. I can't. It's like torture. And then my mom, because she loves it, she absolutely loves it. Anytime you call her, she has like these cheesy Afrobeat songs as like the fucking thing you hear while you're waiting for her to pick up the call.
I think that's just Nigerian phone services. I think Nigerian phone services just have that.
Just have like a cheeky Afrobeat song for you to like wait to. It's really annoying. Like when I'm like nervous or I need to call my mom about something serious, and then all you hear is this like silly African song on the other end.
It's like a really happy African song. It's so funny.
Like, oh my God, it's really annoying, but it is what it is. But speaking of music, our last topic of the night is the cancelling of Roisin Murphy, one of the many...
Yeah, favourite electro girly.
Yeah, she is one of my favourite electro girlies. One of the many sort of symptoms of living in this awful matrix is cancellation and like herd mentality and bullshit.
Deciding who needs to be ejected from the matrix.
Yeah.
Because we don't like your smell anymore.
Yeah.
You make us sick.
You make us sick.
Well, to be fair, I got on the tube this weekend and then had that very Agent Smith reaction.
To other human beings.
Some people had some fucking BO on the tube.
Oh my God.
And it's just like, dude, if you're traveling on a hot tube, you got to have some courtesy and shower before you get on the tube.
The temperature has gone up in England all of a sudden. It's gone quite hot.
It's just like inconsiderate and horrible. And I was really like, oh, the putridness. Get away from me, you foul creature.
Oh my God.
You're just a person, I remember.
Yeah, well, in our little weird matrix cancel system, we decide who gets turned into goo for the babies to eat. That was a piece of lore in the Matrix that I kind of missed. If they could do that to J.K.
Rowling, they would, though. Let's be real.
They can't, which is why they're mad. They can't, which is why they're fucking mad.
If they could turn J.K. Rowling into goo and feed it to babies, they would do it.
They definitely would. That was a piece of lore that I missed in the Matrix that I clocked, was that they recycle the dead humans and feed them back to
heavy,
yeah, it's fucking, that's dark. But yeah, back to Roisin Murphy. Before we dive into her favorite electronic music girlies, Bjork definitely is up there. Iona Lee, I think that's how you pronounce her name, from I Am I, Who Am I? Yakumi from Little Dragon.
I was going to say Yakumi, definitely.
Definitely Roisin Murphy. She's on the list. Hell yeah. I'm trying to think of any other electropop people.
Suzanne Ciani.
No.
What?
No one else. That's my top
list. You don't
list.
like Suzanne Ciani?
Mid.
What do you mean mid? She's like a modular synthesis pioneer. She's like fucking epic.
Yeah, but it's not
and
like...
she did the sound design for a bunch of my favourite fucking pinball machines as well.
But she's not one of the girlies, though.
Oh, I think that's
she's not one of the girlies. And Grimes is not on this list. She doesn't get to be on the list. She never gets to make it on the list.
She left the list when she started making...
Well, she was never on the list anyway. Like, you know that like meme, the I Want to Be Ninja meme?
Oh yeah.
Like the white woman who like sang that song. That's what all of Grimes's music sounds like to me.
I mean, she had that one,
like
she had that track on her first album, and her first album generally I thought was actually quite interesting. And
it was okay. Visions was alright. Like it was alright.
But
like,
after her first album, I really didn't care.
Yeah, not that much. So she doesn't get to be on the list.
It insists upon itself, as Peter Griffin would say. It's not pleasant.
And besides, she has like she specifically tries to like appeal to that demographic of like furries and like weebs and very online internet types, and like says all of this pseudo intellectual leftist fucking bullshit. And like that's like her crowd of people. That's like who she like appeals to, and therefore she's like uncancelable unless she makes a small mistake, which is the thing with those sorts of people. The people who sort of pander to those demographics, are always at risk of pissing those people off, because those people are always looking for whatever minor infraction they can to like fuck with someone, especially because they're full of resentment and like envy. But with Roisin, all Roisin did was say that she thought puberty blockers were a bad idea.
Yeah.
And now they're
she was concerned for children.
Yeah. And now they're canceling her shows. Her record label said they're going to donate the proceeds of her album to some trans charity or some shit.
If that is her new album and that is the one that's coming out on Ninja Tune and that's Ninja Tune that's doing that, shame on you, Ninja Tune.
Yeah, big shame.
That's fucking lame, bro. I actually really enjoy quite a bit of music that comes from your record label, and now it's going to put a sour taste in my mouth.
Yeah, people are trying to really ruin her career, and it's sad because like she's been part of that whole disco, electronic music, ballroom adjacent sort of scene. So she's been obviously very involved with the gays.
Oh, she's got taste. She's just one of those people that's got taste.
She's got great fucking taste.
And knows how to put something together.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
she knows how to put together a great fucking song. She has like a very rich palette, and a lot of it is inspired by like house, ballroom. So obviously she's like in bed with the gays. Like the gays love her. Like her whole fan base is basically gays and women who love to dance, which is why I fucking love Roisin Murphy, because I'm a girly that loves to dance, and there isn't a lot of good dance music out there these days, and there's no song, like every single fucking one is a bop. Every single one of them gets me on my feet. And like, yeah, she's also kind of inculcated and sort of adjacent to sort of gay culture, and because of her persona and the type of music she makes. And I think that's probably why she got cancelled, because she has a lot of LGBT types in her audience, and a few of them are obviously patrolling, looking for reasons to get mad, because it was a private post that she made on her Facebook that someone screenshotted and then put her on blast. And now it's caused this huge stir where like she's basically, they want to stamp out her whole fucking legacy.
That's kind of like the, what were they called? They're called the cultural army in China or whatever.
Oh, I forget what it's called, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
the people that were like, you said a bad thing about communism. You're going to like be sent to the slave camps.
Yeah,
like, that's what they want to do.
Re-education or whatever.
That's what they're doing as well, isn't it? It's like you can't trust anybody because it's like Soviet style shit where like you don't know even if your
who's
mate is
dob you
fucking
in,
put you on blast on the internet and like fucking ruin your reputation forever.
Yeah, I mean even with
Lizzo, try to at least.
Yeah, even with Lizzo, I kind of agree with what Tim Dillon said, where he was like they're probably resentful because she was making them work, she was making them dance for a long time, because like they're mad that they have to do all this dancing and hard work, and she just gets to sit there and like judge them.
She does the singing, doesn't she?
Yeah, exactly.
And the flute playing.
But she was like, they're probably resentful, and because in this day and age, sensationalism, victim and perpetrator stories, all of this stuff sells. It's very easy for someone to fucking point to someone and make a bunch of vague accusations about their character or whatever the fuck. And especially when identity is a metric in whatever is going on. And for Roisin, identity isn't necessarily a metric, but because she sort of makes music that appeals to the gay community and women,
she's gonna get that backlash.
Yeah, yeah, because those are two of the primary demographics that are like, you know, really gung ho about like trans issues, and like. The puberty blockers thing shouldn't even be controversial. I think any sane, concerned
kind of J.K.
person...
Rowling's sort of main comments, they weren't even really that inflammatory either, were they? They were sort of more around the lines of something like that, like there's lots of like damage being done to young people.
Anything that's not like
sort of not founded in science, or something around like that.
But anything that's not blind deference and just like A-OK support is viewed as bigotry. And I hate that this shit is starting to affect the music industry. And now she's not the only musician that's come out and spoken. Like a couple of weeks ago, Alice Cooper said something, and then someone else, I forget, but a few people in the music industry have come out about specifically trans child medicine.
Oh, Alice Cooper did?
Yeah, Alice Cooper did. God. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I hope they don't hurt Alice Cooper.
He's an old man. Like, you know.
He's a sweet old man.
Who knows? But like, I feel like it's annoying because now it's going to be stratified. You're going to have celebrities on one side who are pro this and celebrities on the other side who are pro that. And it's always about positioning yourself on the fucking cultural chessboard and attempting to suck up the cultural capital that comes from being associated with a side. And I really respect Roisin Murphy's statement that she made after the whole controversy, which is that she just kind of made a statement in passing and that she's not a campaigner or a politician. This is an issue that she's had thoughts about and she expressed them. But, you know, anytime anyone comments on this, people want to make it their whole thing.
But that is a slave camp offence, to have thoughts of your own and express them.
Yeah.
You mean thoughts that weren't sanctioned by the party? Those are bad thoughts that will get you in trouble.
I mean, even fucking J.K. Rowling, as much as, like, I'm annoyed about seeing her adjacent to this issue. And even then, she's the writer of Harry Potter. She could have had like a quiet, dignified sort of thing. But she had something that she really believed in and wanted to get behind, which is like more kudos to you, whatever. But at the same time, I really despise that it's now become her whole thing. And I feel like anyone who comments on it, it then becomes your whole thing. Whereas this is something that you can have an opinion about in passing or whatever, but it doesn't necessarily make it your whole thing. You may have other things that you're interested in or want to talk about. But as soon as you comment on this one thing, because it attracts the ire of this group, you're forced to go on about it ad nauseum forever and ever and defend yourself and then get angry and then find allies and blah, blah, blah. It's just exhausting.
It's a way of sort of dividing people around something really incredibly fundamental.
Yeah.
Which is why that guy did that documentary called What is a Woman?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because it's not a hard question.
No.
Yet there seems to be this really kind of nervous answer around it from well-intentioned people in a more charitable way.
Yeah.
Or to complete ideologues in an uncharitable way. So it's a really easy way to kind of create a really horrible tension and division across a really fundamental and basic understanding of reality. And also Roisin Murphy is a mouthy Irish girl. The same people who were crying tattoo tears over Sinead O'Connor would have probably cancelled her back in the day. Yeah.
And also Americans are fucking crazy, because when Sinead O'Connor did her thing back in the day, there are people fucking bulldozing over her records. And what's his name? Joe Pesci went on Saturday Night Live the following week and said he would slap her. Like, literally, this whole cancel mob shit has been in the American psyche for a very, very long time.
Joe Pesci is a passionate Catholic Italian man, right? Okay,
he was like, I would have slapped
Catholic
her
Italian American, and like I can totally see Joe Pesci like chatting shit and saying something like that about Sinead O'Connor.
But they would have. Everyone was crying tattoo tears. The whole media cycle surrounding Sinead O'Connor's death was kind of annoying to watch, because the same people who are crying tattoo tears would have been the ones to cancel her back in the day. And they're probably the same ones cancelling Roisin Murphy right now. Another mouthy Irish fucking singer girl who just said what was on her fucking mind. Leave her the fuck alone.
I think personally, unless they do something really terrible, like, you know, murder someone or like fiddle with children or something, the artists should be allowed to sort of have weird and eccentric
but it's not even a weird or eccentric view.
No, it's not. It's a very
thing.
Basic standard view. But they should also, in a healthy society, be allowed to have weird and eccentric views. Yeah. Like, because that's how you're going to allow people to freely express themselves in the most honest way possible. We're in a
post-that society, because everyone's looking at their bag and their social capital. We're all in the Black Mirror nosedive universe. And the thing that made me sad is that not many musical artists have come out to defend Roisin Murphy, because they're worried about the cancel train coming on them. And this is how this sort of cultural virus functions and works. And it makes me sad, because I take this slightly more personally, simply because Roisin Murphy's like on repeat, like on my playlist. Like Dear Miami is like constantly on the move, fucking Evil Eye, all of it. Like, her music has meant so much to me throughout the years. And, you know, she is one of the electronic music girlies. Like, you know, this can't happen to her. And I'm really sad that it is happening to her. And I don't think she deserves it. And I think it's a shame that things have gotten to this point. And I also think it's a shame that when people talk about music artists now, they talk about their followers instead of their fans. Like, because people were freaking out this weekend about Doja Cat's demonic music video or whatever. And
is this after she had like told everyone to fuck off? And
now she's got a demon video, and all the fans like, oh my god, she's sold her soul to the Illuminati. It's just like this whole circus. But like, the journalist who was talking about it referred to her fans as Doja Cat's followers, as if she's an influencer rather than like a musical artist.
Yeah.
And that sort of was like, you know.
Well, she did like make a meme.
Yeah, she kind of is.
Record deal, right?
Yeah,
like,
but that was part of
trajectory.
She's part of a new breed of that sort of thing. But I feel like the reason why people like Roisin Murphy are getting cancelled is because they are not influencers, they're music artists. But because every music artist has to have social media now, then viewed as influencers. So even when they say their opinions in passing, they're put under the same sort of like scrutiny, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And like, yeah, her shows are getting cancelled now in London, which fucking pisses me off because I want to see her live. I haven't yet, and I would love to, but you know, it sucks. And I think it's more to do with that blurring of the lines between like artist and like influencer, and the fact, like you said, with the whole custom reality thing, the fact that people we're sort of heading into a future where people are going to be more able to sort of customize their realities.
And people say
pesky opinions.
I want the AI to completely commodify people's talent and their humanity, because actually then you get it cleanly away from all of their icky personal bullshit and problems.
All of their subjectivity.
Like, I really like Roisin Murphy, but I think she's a fucking turf. So I want to have like a Tyler the Creator type beat with
Roisin Murphy vocals.
Yeah, with Nas X singing the verse and Roisin Murphy singing the chorus.
But that's literally what they tried to do.
I like her sound, but she's problematic.
But that's what they tried to do with J.K. Rowling. They were demanding her name be taken out of video games, that they reprint the book and take her name off it.
That's wild.
It was crazy. It was literally insane. Like, these were demands that were being made during the whole J.K. Rowling debacle, and that's what these sorts of people want. They don't care about anything other than the ability to customize and like control reality.
I think there are more and more people giving up on all of that shit.
I guess so. And I think subjectivity is more important now than ever. And like, I think people also need to embrace the fact that allowing someone's subjectivity also means allowing what you perceive as their flaws. And maybe you should spend less time paying attention to other people's what you perceive as other people's flaws and more towards your own flaws. Like, you know, it's not as if the people who are cancelling Roisin Murphy are fucking perfect people.
As JFK once said, ask not what you can do ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. You know what I mean? Like, you got to get off your butt and, like, do something.
Yeah
and not like be looking at everyone else being like, meh, they're doing it bad.
But the politicization of the musical arena is going to get worse, especially with this whole rich man of Richmond thing. I'm not getting involved in the debate of whether it's left or right or any of that shit. I think he's probably AI or something.
He certainly did a good job on Rogan, coming down as a regular schmegular bloke who just popped.
Did you watch the whole thing?
No, I watched a few clips, but he definitely does a good job of coming across as like a normal bloke.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I'd
have to see some pretty solid evidence that he is actually a plant. Otherwise, he just kind of got lucky. But then also maybe he wrote a song with the algorithm in mind and the zeitgeist in mind, and what's wrong with that, you know?
Yeah, like, nothing is wrong with that for sure, but it's still everyone pretending like it's this organic expression of blah 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 is what bugs me. I don't know. I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, I could be totally wrong, but it doesn't, and I guess maybe I have brain poisoning.
My only comment I make about that is that everything I've seen in the comments of the main gist of what I see people saying in the comments about it is that he just said what everybody was thinking.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So he touched upon a sentiment, and not even if that sentiment was actually you believed the opposite, or that somehow then got politicized on one side, so you sort of made a video reacting against it or saying why it was bad on the other side. Like, it was kind of complete. It was perfect. It got some people passionate, and that's enough to make other people passionately the other way. You know. So,
but even then, my whole thing is sentiment mongering is so prevalent these days. Everybody sort of is like, oh, here's this thing in the zeitgeist. Don't you relate to this? I'm pointing out this alienation. Blah 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 blah. But then that always comes along with selling something. It's never, people don't ever talk about the problems of modernity or like the, crises facing humanity unless they're like going to project their own internal content onto that. And that's what I'm always looking for whenever new cultural figures emerge. Not just their critiques of the zeitgeist, which I may agree with, I might relate to, but also what internal content are they projecting onto those critiques. I think that that's an exercise that everybody should practice. And I guess that's what I was kind of listening for in the Joe Rogan interview is, okay, he's got the attention now. What is he selling? And it seemed as if he was sort of talking a lot about religion on it. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I think, again, it's so emblematic of the times that we're in, this sort of spiritual thirst, this desire for like numinosity. And even Joe Rogan seems to have softened his position on religion a lot lately. I've noticed he's a lot more open to discussing that kind of thing seriously on his show. And yeah, I think that that's kind of telling. I don't know, but I guess I'm watching this Rich Man of Richmond guy. I haven't made my mind up about him yet.
Let's see if he can follow up.
Yeah, let's see what comes next. But anyway, guys, it's been fun rambling and chatting with you guys this evening. Tune in next week for another episode. Hopefully we'll have a guest on next week as well. And yeah, follow us on social media. You can join the Discord by joining the Patreon as well. And yeah, we'll catch you next week.